If you love Pinot Noir, if you can't live without Chardonnay, then make sure you check out today's very special chat with Melanie Chester, the head winemaker of Giant Steps in the Yarra Valley. We are giving you an exclusive first access sneak peek at the brand new 2024 Single Vineyard wines from Giant Steps. We caught up with Mel down the freezing, windy, cold Yarra Valley last week, tasting all things Giant Steps, checking out their vineyards, their new winery, and even has shared some spaghetti with Mel afterwards too. It was a great chat, and we'd love you to check it out. Mel Chester, g'day.
Hey buddy.
How are you?
Welcome to the Yarra.
I would usually welcome you, but now you must welcome me.
Welcome to our tasting room.
This is a lovely spot to have a glass of wine
Yeah,
at the end of the
midwinter.
day, cruising around the Yarra Valley with you, checking out some lovely vineyards, your new shed. Shed's maybe undercooking things a bit.
Yeah, winery shed.
It's a pretty cool new site that you guys have moved into from the old glorious building just down the road here,
Yeah.
which we all love. And what we are doing, we are having a look and a chat about the new 2024. Do you call them icon wines, or is it single vineyard release?
Single vineyard collection, I guess. I kind of think about them as a sort of set of wines, and like, you know, I kind of love the fashion reference of collection, but
Yep.
you know, they're just,
Me
you
too.
know, beautiful little wines from our 5 single vineyards across the Yarra. There's not a lot of trickery. It's just, you know,
Well, and of course Tasmania. Don't forget Tasmania.
Yeah.
Yep, the
Sneak
outlier.
that one in.
Yeah. So I thought what would be really fun today is to talk a little bit about the 2024 vintage compared to the last few that people would have tried, and have a look at not all the wines, because to be honest, it's just too much wine. But a bit of a selection of probably some of the more sought after Chardonnay wines and Pinot wines. So your lovely team here has kindly put 3 Chardonnays. So we've got, this is hilariously confusing, isn't it? So on, for the people watching at home, Tarraford, Sexton, Bastard Hill.
Yeah.
And we're flipping it to Tarraford, Sexton, Bastard Hill.
Left to right. I don't think it's that
So
confusing.
my left, your left, your right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, talk to us a little bit about the 2024 vintage and what we can expect from the season.
Yeah, classic Yarra vintage really. We've had come off the back of, you know, 4 cold La Nina vintages. So the 24 vintage sees a return to probably the more classic Yarra season. It was an interesting one that started high rainfall, warm soils, and quite a big rip out of the ground for the vineyard. So early and really excitable start to vintage. It was nice soil moisture, and we had great early growth. And that kind of continued all the way into December. And then we had a couple of really nice rainfall events around Christmas and New Year, and had pretty good fruit set, really nice conditions, nice warm soils, happy plants. And then quite quickly after sort of the New Year's break, we had some warm conditions, and it dried out really quickly. And then it was a vintage where it was sort of consistently mild, but then we'd get these kind of heat spikes of, you know, 2 to 3 days above 38.
Yeah,
so
right.
that kind of, those heat spikes in February brought the vintage all quite close in terms of ripening periods. It was a pretty spicy one. It was like very condensed and super exciting. And at one point, you know, where in 23 there was a 4-week break in terms of ripeness from one vineyard to another. We were really picking the whole valley, got picked off in about 3 weeks. So it was pretty fun.
So a year like 24, so you've come off the back of 4 cool years, really, 20, 21, 22, 23, all kind of cooler
And
vintages,
low-yielding years
Low
too,
yielding.
yeah.
And then are you just like waiting for La Nina to finish in that situation?
You are relieved, because like the benefit of those more like classic vintages is that you don't have high soil moisture, and you don't have a lot of pressure around for disease around spring or pressure around flowering. And it was a relief to have regular crops, if I'm honest.
And at what point can you see that that's what the season is going to look like?
Well, quite early on, like it kind of ripped out of the bud burst happened evenly, and we had early spring growth. So you're like, cool, all right, things are happy. You know, the vineyard's happy, beautiful green leaves. Like, you know, things are going well. 3 weeks after bud burst.
One thing that I always find interesting is people think about a vintage and the conditions around the time of vintage. But so much of it's what's happening in spring and winter before, isn't it? And when bud burst starts. And is that? Do you see that in 24?
Yeah, and also probably the biggest thing, the single biggest like time that influences the vintage would be that flowering period and the weather and the conditions around that. Like, and in 24, we just had a really nice window of flowering, lots of sunlight, lots of cool, still weather. So it was a really great conditions and conducive to great flowering.
Until the end, when like it went crazy and
it was
everything
it's
comes
all
in
happening.
at once.
But that's kind of fine. Like, our vineyards have got nice, strong, root systems. They've got happy canopies. Like, they were like, cool, no worries. They sailed through it. It just brought the ripening on a little bit quicker and all on top of each other, which is...
How do you cope with that when everything comes in one go like that within a couple of weeks?
We've got a great team who go for it and who are ready for it. And, you work a few hours and it's a bit exciting for a couple of weeks, but, everyone, it's the excitement. We live for it. Like, I love vintage. It's my favourite time of year. It's a time where, like, the winery is like a bubble of excitement and smells and energy. The music's really, really loud. The beers are really, really cold. Smokos are always elite. And the vineyard's just loving it. They've got to the point of 6 months of really hard work and now they're just picking buckets off the ground. They feel like, for them, it's like, it's hard work, but it's also like the end of a huge amount of effort. So it's an amazing time of year. And,
And were you went in your new winery for 24? Or
yeah.
that was kind of the half in, half out?
Yes, exactly. So we bought this beautiful winery that we settled on the 28th of December in 2023.
Love the arches.
Oh, mate,
Gorgeous.
it's a beautiful property and, such a nice space to make wine in. But we kind of weren't sure we're going to get in time for vintage. And then we thought, right, well, at least we'll make our whites there because all we need to do is drop our barrels in a press and that's like white winemaking is relatively simple, but we kept our red winemaking at our old facility. So I thought, like, how hard could it be making wine across two properties? It'll be fine. There was some moments where I was like, it's going to go to this winery. Actually, it's going to go to this winery. And it was, but again, amazing team. And like our team who like, ran on the ride with us in 2024, they just like took it in their stride and we made some really cool wines. I'm really proud of the wines.
I think after the last few years, there's been a lot of like press around the Giant Steps Single Vineyard wines from 21, 22, 23. It's really fascinating to see where 24s sit. Do you, stylistically, where do you think they sit compared to the last? Obviously, it's the best vintage you've ever made. Goes without saying.
Vintage of the year.
But stylistically, how do you think they compare?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting change after those cooler years that were more, 23 where Chardonnays were pristine. The Pinots had long ripening period. They were glossy and slippery and juicy. Like, I think it's a return to the vintages that people and the style that vintage loves from the Yarra Valley. The Chardonnays are compact, they've got presence, but they're not acidic. And the Pinots is a classic red fruit, sort of spicy, fragrant lift. And where we used to always get fragrance, which was florals and spice. In 24, it's one of those classic, like, very floral vintages, and the spice is sort of secondary to the perfume of the fruit. So yeah, it's a cool vintage and very classic, Giant Steps wines this year.
This is a really cool trio of wines actually, because you've got the Tarraford and the Sexton Chardonnay, which are the two sites that kind of defined Giant Steps in a lot of ways.
Totally.
For a long time, even back to the innocent bystander days and everything. And it was always these two vineyards, and Sexton was rich and Tarraford was a bit zippier or whatever. And it's probably changed a bit over the years, but it's actually the first time today that I've visited the Tarraford vineyard. So I've been lucky to go to Sexton a few times, but popping to Tarraford, met Chris and Anna, isn't it, Christophe, who have owned that property for a long time, obviously, and farmed it, and such an amazing site. And you guys are obviously working really hard to continue to regenerate the vineyard. But what does Tarraford... Can you give a little bit of a background of the Tarraford vineyard, where it sits geographically compared to the other sites, and what that lends in a glass?
Yeah, so Tarraford is our lowest elevation and our most northerly vineyard. So it's probably the warmest sub-region that we grow Chardonnay in. But it's a really unique property that has Chardonnay tucked in on the south and east facing slope, so with its back to the sun. So it's a very sheltered little site. It was originally planted in the late 80s, and Chris and Anna for a long time grew sparkling base for Domaine Chandon.
Which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's what...
When you think about the part of the Yarra that's in now, where you're surrounded almost by like red wine country, like Shiraz and Cabernet.
And I think that was a big part of the boom and the story that happened around in that in that region of the late 80s. So that's really what this region was doing, was growing sparkling base. And when Phil and Flamo first ventured into Tarraford Vineyard in the late 90s, this was, our first venture into, great table wine off the site. So the family, the Long family, had made a few table wines off there for a laugh, and Phil was really impressed with them. And quite quickly we realised how different those two expressions of Chardonnay were.
Didn't we hear a story today that Chris was saying when Phil first came and he had a Pinot?
Yeah, a little bit of black Pinot that Martin Williams had made off of that farm, and he thought, cool, that's amazing. I hadn't heard that story until today. So these are the little things you pick up along the way. So it's an amazing property, but you'd expect it to be the most voluptuous and textured Chardonnay.
It just doesn't look like that in the glass always, does it?
No, I think it's interesting. And also, you harvest it on the same day that we harvest Sexton, even though Sexton's a step up in elevation.
So is that just when the fruit's ready, or is that deliberate to look at
No,
the same
it's
day?
when the fruit's ready, and it is a vineyard with its back to the sun. So it's got a slightly more mild ripening period. It doesn't face north like Sexton.
Yeah.
We end up with this sort of more floral, like white flower expression of Chardonnay.
Really white flower.
Yeah, and there's this beautiful kind of softness to Tarraford and ease to Tarraford. There's always this kind of, little bit of nutmeg or kind of white marshmallow, which I find beautiful.
It's almost like this outpost. Like most of the story now with Giant Steps is moving more into the cooler sites in Upper Yarra, right? With Applejack and Bastard Hill and Primavera, etc., and then Wombat Creek before that. And now you've got this little outpost that's like further north in towards the Badlands, as you described, of the Yarra, but then still produces such elegant wines. Like when you're sitting in Tarraford looking back towards Sexton, you were pointing out, if you look up the mountain over there,
The flat country, exactly. But I
and
think
you can see the Sexton Vineyard looking back at us, and it's another probably 100 metres up and further south. But
I think this is such a great example of texture, of power, but with restraint. And it's a real, for me, it's an example of what wines that, can still have meat on their bones. Chardonnay can still have the meat on their bones from the Yarra Valley. These beautiful, lightly framed things from the mountains are charming and fragrant. But I really like the presence that the Tarraford brings. And especially this year, we put a little bit more new oak in it. And I'm actually loving that in the wine. I'm finding like the flinty, kind of smoky thing that we get, the barrel kind of sweetness, and then that beautiful white flower kind of mandarin. It's all offsets in this really nice complex wine. So
that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's yummy. It's
tastes good too. Sexton. So compare that to Sexton. So we were up in the Sexton Vineyard earlier in the afternoon than Tarraford.
Getting our wigs blown off. It was bloody
windy there, and you're so exposed, looking into the sun.
Yeah.
But just so, and every time we visit that vineyard, you feel like you're going to get blown off it.
I know.
I remember last time we were with Flamo trying to pour us a glass of wine.
And it was I know. It's crazy up there. 200 metres and really exposed to those southwesterly winds.
Beautiful though. You can see this whole 360, not 360, but
pretty close.
Would it be 270 degrees?
Sure, let's go with that.
Between 180 and 270.
Massive view across the whole valley, and I like being up there because it contextualises what you can see, in that landscape. You see the rolling, gentle hills of the valley floor and some of those lower sort of pockets and kind of gullies like the Tarraford Vineyard, and up the top there, Sexton.
Good spot to land a helicopter.
Yeah. Are you buying one? You're going to take it?
Different, yeah, okay. We need your help for that one.
Yeah, exactly. So, quite a high altitude at the top, but, goes all the way down back almost 80 metres to the base of the vineyard. And there's 4 different gradients. So, there's this big central hillside and the vineyard wraps all the way around it. And there's a west-facing slope, hot afternoon sun where we get the Cabernet. But the best Chardonnay for this comes from that east-facing slope where you get this sort of more mineral kind of almond meal expression off that east slope. And at the base of the northern vineyard where we've got this really powerful
That's where the Mendoza clone is down the bottom there.
I like this block though because you can sort of perch up and look down on the north-facing slope and see all the different gradients. So we go all the way down to the hill. So that bottom corner vineyard that you're looking at there with that tiny little dam, that is one of my favourite blocks of Chardonnay that we'll taste from the winery later on. And that's old vine Mendoza clone. That block has so much power and presence. And then you so that's the...
Which one? The one right next to the dam?
Not that big fuck off lake, but the dam down here.
Yeah.
Little corner down. That's old vine Mendoza clone. Or gingin. Power.
Character.
Yep, power and pithiness.
Yeah.
And that's that kind of we always talk about yuzu, sushi ginger, pink grapefruit at Sexton. There's this sort of crackle of energy in the 24s, which I find electrifying and exciting. It's always a wine that has a bit more tannin and extract. And
how much of that is the site versus the winemaking? Because we were looking at these different vessels you're now using with different sites, and we were just chatting with your assistant Mike Latham too about what the different vessels help to bring out the characteristics in the vineyard. And it's this ongoing debate of, do you just make everything exactly the same and let the vineyard do its thing?
Yeah.
Or are you helping the vineyard do its thing by making it in the way it needs to be made?
Yeah, so Latham and I debate about that all the time. Are we going to be such religious single vineyard winemakers that our philosophy is going to be to make the wines exactly the same and just have your, experience be just based around the fruit that the vineyard grows? Or are we going to be leaning into, different vessels or different fermentation methods based on what we think works for the vineyard? And I actually don't have an answer on that one. I find that as I can't work out which way I've landed, but certainly in 24, we've played a little bit more with vessels. We've done a bit more new oak and smaller barrels, barriques on Tarraford. We've got, this beautiful Foudre ferment on the at Sexton. We've got an egg fermenting because it's, 30% of the Applejack wine. So
the Foudre that we tasted at Barrel to 25 was unbelievable.
It's incredible. But that's an outrageous batch.
Fleur? Was that
her name's Fleur. Named after a dog that one of our team dog sat in the middle of vintage called Fleur. She was a French bulldog and she looked kind of like the Foudre. It was great. It was really cute. And so Fleur is this 100% brand new Mercury Foudre. It's an incredible batch, but it's totally outrageous. It's 100% Malo. It's slippery. It's caramelly.
Was Fleur involved in the 24?
No, not in 24. But we have used large format before at Sexton because it kind of keeps them energetic and tight.
One thing I noticed with the 24 Sexton is that tropical fruits really come out here. The
yuzu,
ginger.
Yeah.
A little bit more of that. Which,
and
but that can be perceived to be a negative thing, but it works so well.
Sometimes we see it as kind of green pineapple just before it becomes very tropical and floral and and musky. You can get this kind of really nice, and sometimes we see that green pineapple almost as that juniper character we saw in that egg too.
Totally.
That kind of gin and tonic briny juniper. I quite like that at Sexton. It's just got this real piquant character to it.
And we haven't got the reds on in this lineup today, but the Pinot is a powerhouse. The Cabernets, it's the OG of the Giant Steps vineyard. So it's a beautiful vineyard, and sitting on top of that hill and those steep slopes on either side, the way it runs off, it's an amazing site. Yeah,
the team to look after it, they've got to be pretty brave to spray that. That hillside in the middle of a wet spring. But it's a dedicated crew who spent a lot of love and care on those amazing vineyards. And by the time the fruit comes in, it's there's no fruit that tastes like this vineyard. The intensity and the power that you get.
Speaking of amazing sites, so the Bastard
up to the mountains.
John Snore. The Bastard.
Winter's always coming at Bastard Hill, frankly.
So this has been one of the great stories of the Yarra Valley over the last few years is Giant Steps taking on the Bastard Hill Vineyard and all the history that site has and the exciting wines that you're able now to produce off it. And I was very lucky enough to visit last year as part of that launch of the 23s. Was it a year ago?
Yeah, it was. August, I know, mate. And it couldn't be a more different vintage in 24. 23, coldest, latest ripening vintage on record, and our first vintage off this vineyard where we're picking in April. And I'm thinking, wow, this vineyard's going to really test us. We sort of fast forward to the two vintages that we've had since on this farm, 24 and then 25. And, we've seen and understood the potential of this vineyard in the future.
So where is the Bastard?
400 metres above sea level, right at the top of Gladysdale, surrounded by temperate rainforest, and it's called Bastard Hill because it is a bastard.
It's crazy driving there because you're sort of driving through Upper Yarra and looks like it's getting a bit cooler, and all of a sudden you start going up.
Yeah,
and you go through
and weaving through bush and rainforest. There's lyrebirds, there's
everywhere.
Wallabies. It's you're in the bush, and then whoop, out pops this vineyard, and it's
the top of the hill. And just off a cliff either side, basically.
Exactly.
You feel like you're on top of the world up there.
Again, another saddle. We talked about the saddle, the central hillside at Sexton. This also has a central saddle There's a north-facing slope and a south-facing slope.
Have you started planting it on the? Sorry, which one is the main? The main slope is the north.
Yeah.
The south-facing one you were looking to plant on.
We've actually just pulled out a section on the north-facing slope and started replanting.
Oh, okay.
So this whole vineyard, it's been an icon of the Yarra Valley for, since it was planted by Ray Guerin in the late 80s. Came to us for the first vintage in 2023.
Does Ray still live on the property? Is that no? He used to.
He used to.
Yeah.
He lived there for 20 years with his family, raised his children there. And Ray, just a great viticulturalist and a beautiful person. And he is the brains behind this incredible site. And Applejack, he planted Applejack as well. So, it's an incredible property, but it's really at the edge of the earth. And
what makes it unique with the terroir of the site, the climate there? Because I think if you were to put a gun to my head and say which is the Chardonnay, I can only drink one Chardonnay for the rest of the time, which is the Grand Cru site, as beautiful as they all are, I think the Bastard is the one that maybe holds the most excitement. And for a lot of people we speak to, they're like, can't wait to see where this vineyard goes with more years.
So what makes it so chat about it, which is why it's always been. There's always been this amazing.
It's a good name though, the Bastard Hill, isn't it?
I think for me, it is so high up. It's 400 metres above sea level. A lot of our other vineyards are semi-continental. They're semi-inland. They've got warm days, cold nights, high rainfall during spring. You're so high up here that you actually do get like a semi-maritime influence. So it's a completely different climate. The two different faces of the vineyard, the north and the south. It's like the yin and the yang of the vineyard, and they're kind of unified by that central tree line. The temperate scrub, like the Aussie bush that's like Aussie rainforest that surrounds our vineyard is just amazing. And it's cool. We're fighting that vineyard every year to keep the bush off the vineyard. Like it's just, there's so much biodiversity in the site and this beautiful red dirt. So it's pretty special.
It just kind of feels like everything's dialed up a notch.
Yeah,
the acidity, the intensity, the flavour.
But it's funny, like even the acidity though, I would say in 23 was a big part of the shape of the wine. It was a cold vintage and the acidity really was like the primary line and length to the wine. Whereas in 24 you see there's a little bit more stuffing and there's the texture is built around a bit more flesh, but the fruit character is unlike anything I've seen in Australia. There's always this wax and honeycomb candle wax character.
I think it's shot straight to the top of the Australian Chardonnay tree, to be honest.
It's cool. I'm so proud of that.
10 Aussie Chardonnays, and for the Yarra Valley, it's amazing. So
crazy cup fennel thing.
Oh, fennel flowers, absolutely. I was looking at that before. Yeah, like roasted. And that's another one that's not an easy one to farm. Like Scott, who's been with us and up there, he's doing. He just looks after that place like it's his own, and we're so lucky to have, again, a great team who gives a massive shit about the vineyards. They look after. Like what a lucky.
All right, there's two more sites we need to taste, but we're gonna go red.
Let's
get some Pinot.
Yep.
Let's do it. Pinot Noir. So anyway, we're continuing our tour of the Yarra, and so we've been talking a lot about the home base in the lower Yarra. Lower, I guess, Sexton, Tarraford, sure. Having said that, you raised an interesting point earlier about lower and upper Yarra is not lower altitude, upper altitude, higher altitude. It's about the river.
Yeah, I mean, that's an old Timo Meyer line, which is like lower Yarra and upper Yarra is actually up the river and the lower segment of the river. So
that's the only Timo Meyer line I've ever heard that doesn't involve him saying the fucking funky shit, mate.
Ask him about it if you see him on Wednesday, if you can nail him down. Because I kind of agree with it, which is like, it can sometimes be almost misleading because you think upper altitude, but actually it's upper segments of the river.
Right.
And there is in general, there's higher altitude sites in the upper Yarra, but there's still high altitude sites in the lower and
like we're talking about Sexton.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going towards the upper now with two of your great Pinot vineyards, the Primavera vineyard and the Applejack vineyard. My left, your right. So Primavera, Applejack, and then we'll talk about Coal River separately.
So
but
this is an
two great
interesting one
sites.
because these are both actually at the same elevation. So they're both at 300 metres above sea level.
But different soils.
Different soils and slightly different townships. So, Primavera's in the sort of township or the sub-region of Woorollalek, and Applejack's on the foothills of Gladysdale.
Right.
And then they're also at different soil types. So,
Well, I've got news for you, Mel. I actually popped by these vineyards today and took a soil sample.
This is one that you prepared earlier.
Here's one I prepared earlier. I mean, look at this beautiful little cube I took out of I've got this special device that takes a perfect cube out of the soil.
People are going to want to ask where you buy it from now.
Have a look at this. So we've got grey and red soil there. Grey being Applejack, red being Primavera.
Yep.
My left, your right.
Yep. And interestingly, Where's your other one? You're smuggling in there.
The other
Give me
one.
that one. This
You
is
get that
the
one.
predominant soil type in the
Yeah.
Yarra Valley. This is the grey soils of Sexton and Tarraford, and that is the predominant soil type throughout the Yarra. The less common is this beautiful red volcanic basalt.
Yeah.
So 450 million year old grey clays
Yeah, right.
and 60 million year old volcanic basalts that originate from an explosion of Mount Dandenong 60 million years ago.
Wow.
So old, high clay content, tough old rich soils. These guys, more fertile, more free draining. Life is easy on them, hard on these. And Applejack, interestingly, is in this kind of in between.
So the more volcanic the soils, the more fertile. And
Yes.
what's that mean? So more bigger canopies.
Well, yes, more nutrients, absolutely, more
nutrients,
available
yeah.
nutrients. Also, like they're more free draining and friable. They're deep and they're easy to get through. The roots can kind of move through the soils really.
And what does that
easily.
look like in a glass of wine?
For us, we feel like red dirt brings you wines of more perfume, of more frame, more crunch, but often like this kind of lovely graphite like line and length to them. So they've kind of got an ease, a softness, a sweetness, and a perfume.
I've always seen that with Primavera.
Yeah.
Like that. They're so pretty.
Oh, it's always this
And
like
so perfumed.
rose hip and
Yeah.
there's always a degree of red fruit in Primavera.
Yeah.
It's always cranberry and pomegranate, this kind of crunchy, crackly red fruit. And the fragrance in 24 is all, very floral, like lavender. Whereas, Applejack off those, higher clay content soils,
Yeah.
it's a tougher conditions up there. They've got to really hunt through. So there's always a level of sort of tannin and density that you get from the grey dirt. And there's no right or wrong. They just are different shapes and textures, which I find really beautiful. And that's,
I think
one of the things.
the tannin in the Applejack is probably the big thing that separates these two wines. The Primavera is gorgeous. The Applejack has this latent power just sitting underneath that really pretty red fruit.
And it's like gloss to the fruit as well, whereas Primavera has this kind of crunch and freshness. And, for me, it's a story between, Prim, which is sweet, succulent and perfumed, to Applejack, which is more earthy, more savoury. It's like almost a sweet and savoury in the
Yeah.
which I find really beautiful. And, they're the same elevation. So what's at play there?
That's
is-
really cool. How far to drive from Primavera to Applejack?
Well, it's interesting. It takes you about 30 minutes, but as the crow
Right.
flies, it wouldn't be that far. There's
Right.
just a mountain range that gets in the way of it.
Just a mountain.
Exactly. Well, a little hillside. But, they're very different. And Prim is a beautiful vineyard that we've been buying grapes from for many years. And in 2024, it was our first year co-farming it with the owner. So
Right.
really proud of the
Has Lou
24
handled the
wines.
transition?
He is amazing. He is so proud of the friendship and the partnership, and he's just really excited. I mean, we've got a couple of beautiful hillsides there with no vineyards in them that I've been eyeing off for a couple of years. Chuck a couple of grapes in there in the next few years, but it's an amazing farm. And in 24, like their wines are just
That's
delicious.
sensational. Like
Yeah.
I love this in 23, a bit like the Bastard Pinot, but they were so light and delicate that they almost, for me, got a little bit lost compared to the Sexton Pinot, which is a real Rolls Royce, and the Applejack. And in 24, I think the Bastard and Primavera came back to prominence with just a bit more.
Well, you see the glory that the Upper Yarra has in those cooler years,
Yeah.
in those warmer years. Sorry, the perfume that you still get in the Upper Yarra on those warmer seasons, like in 24. It's like, it's so exciting to see these vineyards come onto their own. And like, the structure and the fill is there in 24, which is really nice to see.
Is Applejack Vineyard one of the great Pinot sites in Australia?
It's just a really special place. You stand at the top there, look down on that beautiful valley, and you can feel it, you can smell
We
it.
didn't get there today, I'm sorry. That's
Well,
our
we're going
fault.
to have a coffee on Wednesday, hopefully.
Okay.
One of the great places for a coffee and a beer, but, just tucked up into that east-facing hillside in Gladysdale. It's, one of the stillest places in Victoria. We don't get a lot of wind through there, so that's great. Pinot doesn't like its feathers ruffled, so it's a very still and calm place. 6 or 7 different blocks up the hill, lots of different clonal diversity, which has been really fun to get to know over the last few years, but it's just an amazing site. And, you've got to remember facing that morning sun, but behind you to the west is all temperate rainforest and Australian bushland. And so, you've got that gentle morning sun, but you're protected in the afternoon by that beautiful, cool bushland. So I think the warm mornings, cool afternoons, and those sort of grayer soils give you wines that are, exotic, they're glossy, they're fragrant. There's always this like lovely wild berry character at Applejack, and then this edge of kind of earthy, we talk about miso and autumn leaf and all this lovely stuff that makes you like look deeper at Pinot. It's one of the things that Flamo said on your. If you guys haven't watched that, you should.
Thanks for watching.
I love
Like
the way
and
you
subscribe.
talked about that. Like and subscribe. And I love that. Great Pinot makes you look deeper, and it's true. Like
Yeah.
Applejack has that. It kind of there's always something that hooks you in, and it's a great site. And the two of them are just beautiful comparisons and off of each other. That
And then the Coal River.
Yeah.
Like this is the step aside from the Yarra Valley. We're talking about nuances and details about this place that we're in tonight. But the Coal River, what took giant steps to Coal River? And
yeah, I think if you're obsessed with Pinot, you go as high up into the mountains as you can get.
Yep.
To
as far-
Bastard
and as
Hill,
far
to
south,
Applejack,
right?
and as far away from the equator as you can get. And that's what, in many years ago, in 2016, that we started making wine off of the Nocturne Vineyard. And it's so fun to make wine in this part of the world. For us, it's ripening just at the end of our own vintage. So we've got a winery that's empty, a crew that knows what's up and knows how to look after great Pinot. We get to bring the fruit up to our winery in the Yarra Valley, and we have so much fun. It's like a little, carrot that we get to dangle at the end of vintages to make wine from another place. And the exploration in winemaking, where you are excited to try to make wines from different places, is something that you never want to lose. It's a great part of the world. It's so different. If Yarra is all about red fruit, florals and spice, there's a presence and power to the fruit in the Coal River Valley, which is totally different. And it's so, it's crazy different in terms of climatically. At Bastard Hill...
it's more like Central Otago down in Coal River, right?
It's dry. Like at Bastard Hill, it's 1.3 metres of rainfall a year on average. Down here, it's 500 mils.
Wow.
500, yeah. So it's, almost 800 mils less rainfall than we get. But it's very late ripening and very dry and very cold and very maritime. So it's just a completely different, reflection on Pinot. And, often we find we get more fruit power. There's, lots of different types of fruit. There's exotic fruit, black fruits, blue fruits. And then, there's this kind of level of tannin acidity, which is just different. And we love it. It's a great part of the world for Pinot.
Oh, you're in a great position to be able to just play with these different vineyards and all the tools at your disposal to make these incredible world-class wines. And it must be a lot of fun. And with your amazing team here, just to finish off, Mel, like how are you? Like how's things going?
Are you okay?
Are you okay? Managing this amazing project, these vineyards, this team, like it's heading into. We're about to release these 2024s, and then obviously 2025s now are sitting in barrels, looking great. New winery, always look at new vineyards. Like, are you okay?
Mate, it's so much fun. We live, laugh, love. What can I say? We have a great time. It's like the idea that, our job is to make the best wines from our region, from our country and in the world is like, cool. That's what underpins everything we do. And that's a really nice thing to be focused on every year. And, it's a shared, team goal. We have a lot of fun doing it too. And we pride ourselves in like working really hard and like making really great wine. Like what a cool way to do it.
You see the fun thing, you see it when you're here visiting your team. Like it's pretty obvious that you guys all get along great and have a great time doing what you're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of love and respect, and I think it's you want to be able to make the best wines in the world and have a great team and make people's lives better while you do it. Both your customers, your consumers, and the team you get to do it with. So we have heaps of fun.
YouTube videos, obviously.
YouTube, of course, yeah.
All right, mate. Well, to making the best wines in the world, I'm going to cheers and Applejack. Go on, Mel. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
24s look amazing. Can't wait to roll these out. And thank you so much for having us. And I hear there's some meatballs.
Spaghetti and meatballs for dinner. What can I say?
Let's do it.
Garlic bread.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
And Michael, back to the studio.